Hi, second graders. So I finally got our read aloud book. When we left off of our story, remember that Sophie, the main character in our story, she's scared of everything. And her sister makes fun of her a lot for being scared of absolutely everything. And that there was a carnival coming into town and a balloonist. This is one of the last pages that we read. And Sophie was really looking at that hot air balloon fly across um, fly across the sky. And I kind of wondered if she, even though she's scared of everything, does she want to go in a hot air balloon and take that ride? So let's keep going in our story. Chapter 4, Left at Home. Okay. Mama promised that she would take Flora, Julie, and Felix to the fair to see the balloon flight. But what about Sophie? She asked. Oh, she won't want to come to the fair, Flora said. She'd be far too frightened. It would be too loud and too crowded. Well, actually, began Sophie, she'd be scared of fireworks. She'd be terrified of tigers and elephants. She wouldn't want to see a hot air balloon. She'd probably scream or cry. But maybe, Sophie tried again. Anyway, we'll go to town in the carriage, said Flora. Sophie doesn't like carriages. She gets frightened. Sophie fell silent. It was true that she hated riding in the carriage. The horses were so big and the carriage was so loud and bumpy. And what if there was an accident on the road? It made her feel sick just thinking about it. Flora was right. Scaredy cat Sophie couldn't go to the fair. And that was that. So Flora is really saying that her sister she doesn't want to go. She's frightened of everything. And Sophie kind of wants to go, but she knows she is frightened of a lot of things that Flora is listing off. Chapter 5, The Black Cat. Soon the great day of the fair arrived. Mama, Flora, Julie, and Felix set off to town, while Sophie was left at home. Before she went, Mama set out some food for Sophie's dinner, some bread, some cheese, and 2 ripe peaches. Are you sure you will be all right by yourself? She asked. Of course I will, said Sophie. But just the same, Sophie did not feel very happy as she watched Flora skip off with her friends toward the village square, where they would get the carriage to town. She's staying at home while her sister and her sister's friends and mom are going to the carnival. To cheer herself up, she went into the garden. She lay down in the grass and watched the butterflies and bees buzzing in the flowers. She stared up into the blue sky. What would it be like to see a bright balloon floating across it? How magical it would be! If only she could see it for herself. So she is outside dreaming about the hot air balloon. She wishes she could see it. Just then she heard a noise in the bushes. Annette's big black cat had come into their garden. It was walking straight toward Sophie with its long black tail in the air. Sophie shivered and jumped up in fear. But the cat did not bite or scratch. Instead, it kept walking toward her and then wound itself around her ankles in a very friendly way. Sophie reached a hand and stroked the cat. Its fur felt warm and very soft. Soon it began to purr, a rich, deep, happy sound. Sophie was amazed as she stroked the cat. A thought flew suddenly into her mind. If she could be brave enough to overcome her fear of the big black cat, then maybe, just maybe, she could be brave enough to go to the fair after all. She stared up into the sky again and thought of the marvelous balloon. She knew she would never be as brave as the balloonist sailing through the clouds, but perhaps she could be brave enough to see him flying for herself. Chapter 6, The Brown Dog. Sophie went back inside the house and put on her best dress. She wrapped up the bread, cheese, and peaches in a clean cloth. Outside, the cat was still in the garden, washing its face with its paws. Wish me luck, Black Cat, Sophie whispered. I'm going to the fair. The cat meowed as if it knew exactly what she had said. Sophie knew it would be too late to catch up with Mama and Flora. Their carriage had already left, but the town was only 3 miles away. She thought she could walk there in time to see the balloon flight. So she is going to walk into the fair that's 3 miles away. She set out along the road and led to town. But before she had left the village, she stopped in her tracks. She could hear the loud and terrible sound of a dog barking. It was Pierre's dog, the big brown one. Woof, 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 it barked as if to say, stay away. And look at Sophie. She looked frightened. Sophie knew she would have to pass the farm on her way to town, and at once she began to shiver and shake. What if the big dog rushed out and jumped at her? What if it growled and chased her? What if it bit her with its sharp teeth? Suddenly going to the fair all by herself seemed impossible. She would give up and run back home. Should she give up and run back home where she would be safe? But then she remembered the black cat, which had not hissed or scratched. Trying to be brave, Sophie crept slowly forward. As she came closer to the farm, her heart began to bump. The dog was barking louder and louder, and soon her hands began to tremble. And all at once, the enormous dog bounded toward her, and Sophie screamed. But the dog did not growl or bite. It was not fierce at all. It was friendly and excited. It wagged its tail and bounced around her. Woof, 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 it barked as if to say, come and play with me. Pierre came rushing into the yard. Get down, he called, you silly dog. You'll frighten Sophie. There's the big brown dog, and there's Sophie, and there's Pierre coming to get the dog away. I'm not frightened, said Sophie, and it was true. She gave the dog's shaggy fur a soft pat, and he licked her hand. Looks like you've made friends, said Pierre in surprise. Where are you off to this morning? The beach? I'm going to town to see the fair, Sophie answered. Pierre looked even more surprised, but all he said was, actually, I'm going to town too. Would you like to ride with me in my cart? Sophie thought about how much she hated the loud, bumpy carriage. She looked at Pierre's old cart. His enormous cart horse was much bigger and more frightening than the carriage horses. The thought of riding in the cart made her feel sick, but she really wanted to see the wonderful hot air balloon. Yes, please, I'd like to ride with you to the fair, she said. Chapter 7. All the fun of the fair. Sophie soon found that riding in Pierre's cart was much nicer than the bumpy carriage. The big cart horse plodded so slowly down the long lanes that she did not need to worry about accidents. Now and then a carriage rushed past them or a horseman galloped by, but most of the time their journey was peaceful. After a while, Sophie began to feel hungry and took out her dinner. Pierre had brought his dinner with him too, some bread, some ham, and some sweet red cherries. They shared their food, and Sophie fed a piece of ham to the brown dog. There they are, off to the fair in their carriage, or their cart. As they came closer to the town, the road grew busy. Soon they could see the fair in the distance. Sophie saw colorful tents, smelled smoke, and heard the sound of music. Pierre stopped the cart close to the entrance. I'll leave you here, he said. Aren't you coming to the fairs? Asked Sophie. She started to feel nervous again. I've got to go to the market first, said Pierre, but I'll come to the fair later. Perhaps I'll see you there. Sophie stared at the crowds of people. She felt very nervous, but she remembered to say thank you as she climbed down from the cart. Wish me luck, brown dog, she whispered as she patted him go by, and then Pierre went on his way. All alone now, Sophie looked around her. The fair was enormous. There was so much to see. Stalls selling cakes and roasted nuts, big posters showing fire eaters and firework displays, and signs pointing to the wonderful whirling wheel. The air was full of delicious smells of spices, caramel, and chocolate. There she is at the fair. She finally made it there. Nearby, a musician was playing a jolly tune on the violin. Another played an accordion, and a third beat time on a drum. Come and dance with us, they called out to Sophie. See my marvelous magic show, cried a conjurer from outside a striped tent. Cross my palm with silver and find out your fortune, called a fortune teller from behind a curtain that glittered with stars. But Sophie did not want to do any of those things. She knew exactly what she was there to see, and that was the wonderful hot air balloon. And we are going to stop there. I will show you the picture for chapter 8. So there she is looking at the hot air balloon. I wonder, I'm so curious at what's going to happen. The thing that I'm most curious about is if she is going to get to ride in the hot air balloon. If she will kind of conquer her fears because she pet the cat, she went with she pet the dog, she got in the cart, even though she was scared of those things. I'm wondering if she will fly in the hot air balloon. So I will let you guys go with those few chapters, and I will read to you guys again. Thank you.